So welcome to today's show, and we are so excited to be introducing you to our very first couple interview on the Wellness Theory podcast, Dan Junkins and Jana Scholten. Daniel is a writer and speaker about healing from leukemia, and Jana is also a writer and speaker about healing from multiple sclerosis. I have a feeling that this episode is going to be absolutely amazing and very profound. So welcome to the show, Dan and Jana. It's great to have you guys here.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're very excited to be here, and thank you for inviting us.
Your story is one that I'm so excited to get into. I think there needs to be more role models on this subject, and I think you two are definitely leading from the front. So I'd love for you to just tell our listeners briefly a little bit about who you are and what it is you're up to in the world.
Do you want to go first?
Sure.
Whatever you want.
Okay, sure. My name is Jana Scholten, and I should actually be in a wheelchair by now. In March of 2000, I was diagnosed with MS and multiple sclerosis, and I was told I'd be disabled within 10 years. So I decided to take my life by the bullhorns. I became a vegan triathlete, a meditation guru, and I visualized my way into true health. So today I'm in benign status. I'm drug-free, I'm healthy, and I'm coming out with a book on February 1st called Enchanted Wellness, How to Go from Hating Disease to Loving It. So
Fantastic.
Yeah.
We're going to get into this so deep in a little while. So I'm so happy just already. What about you, Dan? Give us a bit of a
I'm married to this guy. I'm married to Dan too.
So my name is Dan Junkins. I live in Boston here with my partner and wife, Jana Scholten, and our two cats. I will say that just in April of 2017, I was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia. So in essence, I should be dead right now. I literally had like weeks left to live. Thankfully, they didn't say that to me right off the bat.
They told me.
They told Jana.
helpful.
So just being a storyteller and writer, I discovered this fascinating story about peacocks and how they kill and eat poisonous snakes. And so that was, and they do it for sustenance and transforming themselves into these beautiful colors. So that was inspiring for me. And I shifted my whole mindset the night before having the strongest chemotherapy protocol in the cancer world being put into my blood. And so I decided to be a peacock about it. And so just take it in, consume it, and just sort of take it like it was there for a reason. So I sit here today as a healthy long distance runner and athlete, and I'm just writing and sharing my story of hope and inspiration to those that need it the most, and they're dealing with cancers. And I'm married to this gal here.
Awesome. Listen, I think it's so rare as well, is that like you're a married couple and you've both been through something this really could be quite traumatic. So I mean, I'd love for us to start really at the beginning of probably, I would say, when you started to notice maybe some symptoms to the point of diagnosis, just to see like what was your experience at that time, emotionally, mentally, like what on earth were you thinking and experiencing, and then we'll take it from there. Jana, maybe if you want to go first.
Well, essentially my symptoms started with the numb toe. And so I didn't really think much of it at first. And I bought a bunch of new shoes. And that didn't work. And then I started having vision blurs when I was lifting weights. And my girlfriend was in the healthcare field. And she's like, that's just not right. That shouldn't happen. And I'm like, okay. So, and she's like, you better go get checked out. And I probably wouldn't have done that, but if it wouldn't have been for her. But it just had, they ran a series of tests, and then they finally referred me to a neurologist when they couldn't figure anything out. And so then I went to a neurologist, and at first they were like, well, we can't really diagnose you until you have an attack. And so it took a few months after that. And then I woke up one day and I couldn't feel the right side of my body. And I was like, oh, and I couldn't even shampoo my hair. And I was trying to get ready for work. And then I just started crying. And then I'm like, okay, I better call my doctor. And I told him what was happening. And then I couldn't, feel my hand and my arm. And he was like, oh, this is great news. This means we can diagnose you. I'm like, oh my God.
Every cloud has a silver lining.
Yeah. Oh God.
It's not great to me, you jerk. Anyway, so obviously I called in sick and I went to the doctor instead. And then they, kind of treat you like a lab rat. They put electrodes on your head and they make you do all these weird tests and a spinal tap and all that. And then they were like, well, we think you have MS. We're pretty sure you have MS. And that was in the year 2000, actually. I just turned 30. Like, welcome 30th birthday.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that's not much of a birthday present.
Yeah.
No.
What was going through your mind at that point?
I mean, I was really scared. I mean, I just broken up with my fiance back then. I mean, my mom was sick actually as well, or that's just kind of deteriorating. And it was just a lot of things going on in my life. So I was really just scared shitless. I mean, one, I was alone and for the first time in like several years. And then, this undiagnosis. And I was just really, mentally, stressed, and my job was like really stressful. And it was just a lot of things. I was just really freaked out. And I had ironically done this fundraiser for MS. It was a bike tour, just a short 10-mile bike ride, and with a friend. And at the end of that ride, they had people in wheelchairs. So that's what I thought, oh my God, is that what MS is? So I was just really freaking out because that was my idea of what my future was like.
That's so interesting that you'd ironically done that fundraiser, so you had a picture in your mind of what it could be like. And my granddad actually had MS, and I remember when I was a kid, like seeing him in a wheelchair. I never saw him healthy. And so my picture of MS is that it's, being in a wheelchair, not really being able to do much for yourself, barely even being able to communicate. And it's just incredible to me that you're sitting here now healed. Right? So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, listen, let's put a little pin in that, because I don't want Dad over there getting left out of the conversation. And then we'll come back into our into the journey of recovery.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. So Dan, tell us about kind of your story, your background. Where did it all start for you?
Well, so I had not yet met Jana when she was initially diagnosed. We met actually in 2005. I know.
Oh, okay.
We'll get there. And so for me, I grew up in Western Massachusetts. My father was a professor and a poet. My mother was an artist, so I was surrounded by the arts growing up. I was very motivated by storytelling and writing, but I never felt I could be as good as them. So I basically did jobs that paid the bills. I just sort of gave up that notion because they were very successful in their fields, but I loved the arts. I loved specifically storytelling and writing. So for me, my story began in 2017 after being on it was basically a chimney sweep company I was working for. I was actually a chimney sweep for a while, and then I became the general manager and sales manager, and it was a desk job. And I was not very inspired. And then out of the blue in April of 2017, I came down with what I thought was the flu. And in fact, I was reading the newspaper in the middle of that week, and I saw that headline news that said flu pandemic coming across Boston. And I thought, oh, that's what I have. I have the flu. But after that week, I had a fever. And then I lost like 25 pounds during the week. And I thought, that's a little weird, but maybe it's just a really bad case of the flu. I kept like dismissing it. Like I didn't want to think that it was any more serious than
That's why I made him go to the doctor.
So she did.
Yeah.
So I went to the doctor, and the doctor I walked through the door, and before I even said anything, he just looked at me and went, "My God, you are white as a ghost. I'm going to take your blood right now." So he did. I went home. I actually thought I felt better. It's that phenomenon of going to see a doctor. Oh, I feel better. So I woke up the next morning ready to go to work, and all of a sudden the phone call came in, and it was the lead lab technician at the blood lab. And he said, "Are you Dan Junkins?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "You need to get to the ER right now. You cannot wait. Your blood levels are the lowest I've ever seen." And I was just like, "Really?" He said, "Yeah." So we went, and the next thing I know, we go into this room and we're huddled with a bunch of doctors and nurses. And then the nurse said, "We think you may have leukemia." I mean, you have to understand, I'm a long distance runner. I eat a plant-based diet. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't drink coffee. And I'm hearing this and I'm thinking that is not possible. Like my brain just couldn't register the idea or notion that I would have a cancer or a blood cancer like that. And there's no history in my family on either side of the family. So it was like utter shock, stunned shock.
And they said you couldn't go home. And I'm like, why not? He just has the flu.
And so I literally was put into an emergency room, so to speak. And the doctors just came in left and right for hours, just taking blood samples from me all day long. And then that night, I think it was the following night, they put me into a room in the hospital, and my mom showed up. My two best friends showed up. Jana was there. My uncle was there. And my brother was there. And they came in and they basically proposed recommending the strongest chemotherapy protocol in the world. And I was, again, gobsmacked, stunned mode.
And we didn't really believe in Western medicine. So it was like, uh-oh.
Yeah. So, and Jana, and they really wanted to start like the next day, but everybody in the room was in agreement except
me.
Jana. She wanted to talk to her sister-in-law who worked at Johns Hopkins University down in Baltimore. And so she wanted to just double check if this is the right thing. And Karen was her name.
She said, "No natural shit with this one, Jana." You got to do the Western, you got to do the hard stuff. I was like, okay.
So,
yeah.
And so the night before the chemo started, I had one of these sort of moments. And I think it may have had something to do with having been a hospice volunteer many years earlier. It was actually my way of dealing with my own fear of death and dying. And it was amazing. It literally melted away when I had that experience as a hospice volunteer. I became present to living life and just letting life work. And so I was in that moment sitting in the hospital, and this mantra came into my head. And the mantra was, dive into uncertainty with courage and surround everyone with love. And it's been my theme ever since. And then that preceded me to discover this story about peacocks that resonated so powerfully for me that I became a peacock during my chemo process. And the peacock story was basically they kill and eat poisonous snakes and poisonous plants for dessert. It's like dessert for them. And it's like their sustenance. They gain sustenance from it. So for me, it was a metaphor, but I took it as a way of being, that I could be like them and take it in that way. And the last thing I'll say is that I was supposed to lose weight, lose my taste, lose my smell, and I gained 30 pounds while I was on the chemotherapy.
Wow.
So did I. Sympathy weight.
That's it. So thank you so much for sharing those stories, guys. It's just listening to that, and I'm sure a lot of people listening are just thinking, just like in wow of the story itself, but also I think they're interested in that road to recovery, because I just want to pick up on what you said, Dan, about you went into a place of just accepting what it was and kind of surrendering to it, and what you said, Jana, about not trusting, like not kind of trusting Western medicine, and we're not against Western medicine and doctors and stuff like that, but we know it's not the first point of call when it comes to our health. But sometimes it's a necessity depending on what's happening in your life and the severity of what you're going through. And that combination of natural and clinical might be the case for some people, and sometimes it might be the natural approach. So we are definitely, it depends on the person, but we're definitely advocates of you first, like natural first, and then depends on the severity of what you're going through, that combination with the medical system as well, because you just don't know. And we're so conditioned into believing that we need Western medicine, we need doctors, we need pills, we need treatments, without looking at actually what's going on inside our bodies first. Like what are all these symptoms telling us? Why, like you said, you're a healthy vegan diet, long distance runner, no history of anything. So why is this happening right now? These symptoms are coming up for a reason. There's something that the universe is telling you. And I love the mindset of, instead of obviously I'm guessing that you did have that moment of freaking out a little bit and thinking, oh my God, what's going on? But then you, like you said, you had that mantra started to come in, it came to you, and you started to kind of accept and surrender to it. And you started to have opposite effects to what most people experience while going through leukemia. So instead of losing weight, you were gaining weight. Instead of losing appetite in your taste, it was increasing. So I think that just shows that power of the mind and what it can do for the body. So I think would be the next step now is we want to be interested in what was that road to recovery look like. Now, what happened next for you guys? So once you got that diagnosis, once the doctors told you what you needed to do next, like what did you do? So if we could start with you, Jana, and your kind of story and road to recovery, what happened next for you?
I mean, at first I really did the traditional Western medicine route with MS. I mean, I joined like a clinical study. I felt like I'd be taken care of more, and I did that. And I did the drugs for almost a decade, really, was shooting myself with needles. And when I realized that wasn't really, I was fine. I mean, in the first few years, and then as things started to progress with MS, I would just getting worse and worse, and like life was stressful, and I would get MS attacks, when I, got too stressed, which is pretty much all the time if you're living life. And I was actually a triathlete, and the only reason I became a triathlete was because the neurologist doctor I had told me I'd be disabled within 10 years. So and the biggest challenge was that I grew up in Iowa, and there's not much water. There's more pigs than people. And I didn't know how to swim. So, but I had this, I've always been into fitness, and but not like hardcore, but that gave me like an ultimatum, like I'm going to do the ultimate fitness thing I could do. And just popped in my mind was triathlon. And so I slowly became a triathlete, and that, was challenging, especially to learn how to swim in my 30s. But I did it. I'm really grateful I did. And so I did a few triathlons, and then that led me to like bike rides in the Rocky Mountains and Swiss Alps, and all kinds of really crazy adventures that I never would have done hadn't I had been told that really negative thing.
I love that so much. It's so interesting. Part of my journey, as our listeners already know, is I had quite a depressive episode at one point, kind of rock bottom, and one of my things, like kind of getting back on track, mental health, and my kind of statement, as it were, almost a bit of a middle finger to the universe of, no, actually this isn't going to take me. I signed up for a triathlon as well, which I really enjoy the synchronicity here.
That's cool.
So I'm curious to know, like, what role did that then play in your symptoms and how you were doing when it comes to MS?
Well, I mean, I do know that exercise and strength training and fitness is actually good for the immune system. Yeah. And my second or third neurologist after that thought that was one of the reasons why I was doing so well with MS, or not that bad. I mean, I was, but when I did have symptoms, I mean, honestly, I was kind of pig-headed in that way, and I would just push through it. I even did a triathlon with an MS attack, but I just like prayed for it to go away, and it went away during the triathlon, and then it came right back, which was like, anyway, so I was able to do a triathlon. It was crazy, absolutely complete insanity. But I guess that was like a mindset. It went away. I should have said permanently go away instead of like just a couple hours.
Get more specific about what we wish for,
exactly.
right? But how incredible is that? That living, that proof that it can go away when you just ask it to, right? Like, it's amazing.
That was amazing. But
a glimpse of what's possible.
Yeah. And I mean, from there, I mean, I did do a transformational course that helped me see like who I was being with my mind and my mindset, and that my thoughts were having an effect on my body. And I had a friend and coach in this program, and I was going to go for a run one day, and I put my tennis shoes on, and I fell over. I had complete vertigo, and I was like, oh my God. So I called up David and I said, I can't do anything. What am I going to do? I was supposed to lead this event that night. And he's like, well, do you realize that you're the one who's causing this? And I'm like, what? I have nothing to do with MS. It just happens to me. I can't do anything about it. I'm a victim. And he's like, I just want you to consider that, you're the one who's always there. And what are you saying to yourself? And I was like, oh, okay. It was just negative chitter chatter in my head. He just said, well, consider that, and then think about what else you could create for your future and attention, and then, call me back later. So all I could do was really lay in bed and take a nap. So, but then I thought about what he had to say. And then when I woke up a few hours later, the attack was gone. And I was like, holy crap. I guess this is what they call mind-body medicine. And I had a friend who told me about, mind-body medicine a few years earlier, but I didn't really believe in it because I was on the Western medicine path, and I thought, well, what can meditating do? But I was so amazed because my attacks usually would last weeks or months at a time, where I was completely disabled or fatigued, so fatigued I couldn't do a thing. And so I was like, I really got to look into this mind-body medicine stuff. So that's when I did the mind-body medicine program, and I learned all about, meditation and anti-inflammatory diet. And I had a therapist there that taught me visualization, and she gave me the belief in visualization because she had like cancer patients that had disappeared baseball-sized tumors before their surgery. And I was like, well, can I do that with MS? And she's like, of course. So she really gave me the belief, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to do this. And then I had a timeline because I had an MRI scheduled a few months out. And so I just before I went to bed every night, I did this meditation and visualization of just happy healing cells and just healing. And 3 months later, I had the MRI, and the lesions had all shrunk. And my doctor was like, wow, I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing it. And we're going to put you in this special study to figure out why. So that was really the start of my healing journey.
Fantastic. So the key components for you there were the visualization, the meditation, obviously probably alongside that or as one, and then the anti-inflammatory diet, and obviously improving the quality of thinking attached. Yeah.
I mean, I started the diet after all that. And that was because it was a vegan triathlete a book that I fell upon in a bookstore. And he just said, start by eating a salad a day. And because I really wanted to get off the drug, because I was poking myself with needles, and they just, I give you the flu. They kind of make you feel like crap the next day. And, so anyway, I obviously wanted to do something else. He said he decreased the inflammation in his body by being vegan. And I was like, really? Well, I'd rather eat greens than poke myself with needles. So
that's it. Lesser of two evils, isn't it?
I was like, yeah, okay, that's a much better option, even though I was a farm girl and meat and potatoes diet. And it took a while, but I enrolled Dan because he was an athlete, and he did it with me. So slowly, but we got there eventually.
Amazing. So just to be really clear on this for our listeners, so initially when you was preparing for that MRI and the lesions reduced, you hadn't started the anti-inflammatory diet yet.
No, I hadn't. No.
See, how incredible is that? And like, I'm so happy you've come on, because we talk about these kind of things so often, about like the power of our mind, visualization, connecting to that energy, and really starting to be the CEO of our own system. When we do that, like incredible things can happen, and often I think it's overwhelming. So anybody that's listening to this that's going through some health issues, it's not always about changing everything at once, because it's not always realistic to maintain it, is it? So I'm so happy that you shared that, because that's really fascinating to me, because out of everything that we know, I've and the people that we've spoken to, usually diet is the first thing that people think to change, right? So I love that you've almost flipped that on its head, and you actually started with the stuff that's a bit more out there for a lot of people. So that's
it is. I have a neurologist friend who almost doesn't believe me, but he does. And the same, he's like, you mean you didn't change your diet until after? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, I don't know how that's possible.
I love that you're proving them wrong.
Exactly.
I'm like, it's okay.
It's so true though, and so powerful, because that was my go-to with changing diet and exercise to try and get a different result. But that's kind of at the bottom of the list in terms of priorities when it comes to like healing yourself, because we're big advocates of healing starts from within. Like, we have our own internal medical system, our own healing powers within, but we have to activate them. We have to, first of all, like you said, believe in it. Like when you didn't believe in it at first, so belief is so powerful, to know that you believe that you can trust your body that can do that. And then it's putting those practices in, like reframing your thoughts, like obviously taking back control over your emotions and being able to tap into your body to be able to activate that healing process. Because one of the important things you said there, which is that like you were getting stressed a lot because of the stuff that is becoming limiting or is affecting you. And as that stress increases, it starts to compound. You can't heal yourself from a stress state. Your body just doesn't allow it. Like, your stress response kicks in, healing is impossible, because your stress response is for survival. The problem is when stress stays for long periods of time, it creates inflammation and problems in the body, and the immune system becomes weaker over time. And this is where a lot of problems come from. So when we can flip that on its head and start to think, okay, what's going through my head is going to affect what's happening emotionally, and that's going to have a chemical reaction in my body, and that's going to present itself in some way, good, like we're resourceful or not. So I love it how you've kind of gone from that reactive kind of standpoint of of all those medicines and needles and stuff, which having all these different side effects, to thinking, actually, I'm going to try a different route. I'm going to try a more holistic route and trust myself. And like we said before, it's not to say that that's the only way to do it, but I think people can realize is that is such a powerful thing that you've got inside of you to heal yourself. But it's believing in that, it's working on that mindset, it's working on your emotions, it's working on the nutrition, it's working on the movement. It's all these aspects that your body, your mind, body, and heart need to align to be able to heal yourself. Like I've never experienced anything as severe as what you guys have in terms of MS and leukemia, but I healed myself from chronic pain that I was experiencing for 4 years through tapping into these unresolved emotions and stress I was experiencing. So I definitely know that the possibility of healing is there, and it's just that belief and tapping into that. And like you said, is once you believe it, is doing it. It's like is doing those meditative practices, is changing your diet, is changing these things, but they don't all have to be done at once. And I think that's so key, is just start with one thing and see what happens, because there's so much research and so many studies to prove, like you said before, of people that healed themselves from deadly diseases like different cancers and MS, Parkinson's, all these things. And a lot of people still don't believe it, because when we experience something that happens to us that severe, we panic. And when we panic, our stress increases. And our first thought is, I need to get rid of this as quick as possible. So the first port to go to the doctor is get pumped full of drugs because we're scared. And that's normal. It's a normal reaction. But I think if we can start to think, even while we're doing that, is start to think on that holistic front, is thinking, okay, what in my lifestyle can I change? Like, what can I do with my mindset? What about meditation? What about breath work? What about other types of alternate therapies? Is like, what can I do alongside of that? If I'm not completely sold on the holistic approach, to see what happens, because there's no harm in trying. There's only going to be a positive to it by trying these holistic approaches.
I find it
It's
so
great.
interesting. Yeah, what you've both said there, John and Jana, is about the belief part. It's so powerful. But what I love about how you described it, Jana, is that you said, like, somebody else shared their belief in it, and you essentially borrowed that belief. Right. And then you embodied that belief. So for anybody listening, you've got living proof right now of two people that have done it.
Exactly.
We only need 3 things often to start creating new generalizations in our mind and beliefs. So if we can now, if anyone listening to this, and obviously Jonathan now the third, right? So anybody listening to this, borrow this belief, even if you're curious about it, test it, see what it feels like, and then let your own journey take its course with that belief, and knowing that you can be fully responsible and own your own experience. I think that would be super powerful.
Excellent. So obviously I know that Dan has been quiet for a bit. We've been going through Jana's story. So let's dig into your road to recovery then. Like what happened from that point onwards? How did you get to where you are now, really?
That's great. Well, it's a great way to segue into my story, because I loved how you talked about mindset. Really starts there. It really begins in a place of calm and peace. And that was where I was able to access that the night before and find my mantra and my story. But also, I recognized something, that when you go in, the doctors and nurses start explaining to you about the cancer cells and how the chemo is going to come in, it's going to fight, it's going to kill those cancer cells and whatnot. And the whole language of a battle and a fight, and that the language is adopted out in the mainstream world with everybody saying, fight hard, you're going to beat this thing, you're going to win. And they say like all those F cancer things and all that stuff. And I realized that for me, it's like that actually, I couldn't buy into it, because when they talk about fight cancer, I don't see any battles going on. There's no blood and swords or stuff happening inside of me. It sounded kind of ridiculous to me, to be honest with you. And I realized that for me, where I could come from a place of peace and serenity about it, and not fight the idea or notion that I was in this hospital, that I had a diagnosis, but I had the freedom of my mind, that I may not have had the freedom of doing whatever I wanted physically, but I had my freedom of my own self, my mind, and what was possible. And so for me, I found that if I could actually enjoy this chemo like the peacocks do, that, who knows what could happen. But my feeling was just dive into the uncertainty of it all, and then let everything be. And so for me, that was a profound sort of mindset to work on. The other thing is that Jana has a marketing PR background, and she proceeded to recruit virtually every person we'd ever known, met, worked with, went to school with. She came up with a list to visit me, write emails, call me, letters, cards, gifts, food, whatever. And like she compiled a list of like 987 people.
Clean the house, all kinds of stuff.
It was amazing. And so it was like this community that just sort of we tapped into, and we kind of made the whole process public. Because if you ever notice like how most cancer patients are, they're kind of reserved. We don't want to say anything. And I completely understand it, because that's kind of where I was initially for like the first 24 hours. But I realized that not talking can be just as corrosive to the body and the mind as having a bad diet or something. So for me, it became a community and connection, and just being with people and really having this be like a joyful thing, like the way peacocks enjoy eating poison. So that was profound for me. I would also say that the other fascinating thing was that the hospital I was in surprisingly offered Reiki sessions to all cancer patients. So they actually had a whole volunteer staff of people that would come in twice a week. And I was raving about it so much that Jana would come down from the house and she would come in and they would do it on her too.
I needed it too.
Absolutely.
You know, so that was really amazing. And I will tell you that before I actually had been diagnosed, I had a couple of Reiki sessions. And at the time I thought, whatever, you know, I just didn't think too much of it. And so it's intriguing for me how certain things happen for a reason, that maybe the reason why I was diagnosed was to really
Be open-minded.
more open-minded than I had been before. And I thought I was a pretty open-minded guy. You know, it's funny how we think. So for me, it was sort of like dropping the resistance and letting go and allowing for
Like
process.
trusting in Western medicine at this point, and then, but trusting in all the other modalities that, you know, that are out there and available to us.
Because I think there's a lot of battle conversation going on between Western medicine and different modalities. Like we can actually speak together and work together as a team. Because I do think that, you know, if you're in a car accident and you break your leg, Western medicine knows what to do.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. Yeah, you're not going to put that bone back in place just by wishing it.
You can't meditate a broken leg back together.
Exactly. But it is so because like, but when you're looking at stuff internally, like cancers, like MS, Parkinson's, fibromyalgia, all this stuff, these are things that these cells are naturally within our body anyway, and we activate them through our external internal lifestyle factors. So the more toxicity that we absorb from the external and our internal environment, what we put in our body, the people we surround ourselves with, it starts to create, it breeds that environment for disease within us. So if we know that happens, we can switch that and reverse it. But again, it's like it's that trusting yourself to do it. And it's like, and I think with anyone, it's hard to trust that when we're so conditioned into believing in the medical system. And what I love you said is you had that option of Reiki in the hospital, which is awesome. And there are so many hospitals and doctors out there now who are moving from looking at a symptom-based approach to a cause-based approach. We're thinking, okay, these are the problems, but why are these problems there in the first place? Not just treating the physical symptom, is going deeper into why is that physical symptom showing up in the first place. And that's really amazing about what's happening at the moment. Like, yes, there's still a long way to go, but doctors, dentists, all these other things are starting to look at the body as a whole and start to think everything is connected. So why is cancer showing up? Why is MS showing up? Why is this happening? Where's the cause of this? Instead of just treating the problem, treat the cause. And I love how that mentality is coming out there into the world even more now, which is amazing.
And I think that the other key thing about that is that, you know, the fact that Jana actually got her book endorsed by Dr. Bruce Lipton, the author of Biology of Belief, that says a lot, because it's kind of reversing things, the way we approach things. He's talking in his book about how it's not the DNA that makes us, it's the environment that the DNA lives in that determines how the DNA is going to operate. So it's like we actually have the control and the levers and diodes of how we are composed ourselves, you know. So
there's three key things that I want to pull out of what you said there for our listeners, because just to make sure they really heard it. Because the first thing being what you said about the conversation around these kind of situations and the fight. I think what a lot of people don't always give so much attention to is the fact that our conscious mind essentially sets the direction. It's like a GPS for our subconscious. So if we're telling ourselves we've got to fight something, right, the reality is, like, even if consciously it's a good thing, subconsciously your subconscious recognizes all its past reference points for what fighting means. All of the movies you've been watching, where there's blood and gore or whatever that you've been seeing. When you think about fighting, you think of things like war, you think of the suffering attached to it. And even though consciously you're trying to put a positive spin on it, the reality is internally your subconscious doesn't know that. It's still operating from old reference points. So upgrading the way you think, it would have, from my observation, would have been absolutely huge in opening the gateway to you being able to even let go of that resistance just through the linguistics that you adopted. The second thing was about the sense of community, and obviously people reaching out to you, because what that does internally is it's eliciting those high vibrational emotions, those healing emotions, and that's the power of community. And in a time like that, you want to be immersed in it as much as you possibly can. And I do believe in the beginning, especially at the beginning of a journey like this, it can be hard to elicit those feelings alone. It's possible, but it's not as easy when you're feeling it and you're absorbing it from those around you. So the more anybody that's suffering can be exposed to the love, to the kindness, to the good wishes and all of those things, you will literally feel it. I'm literally getting goosebumps now as I'm thinking about that. So it's possible to elicit those emotions and that high vibrational feeling to be able to heal. And thirdly, that the energetic side that I think Jonathan and obviously yourself have already mentioned there is that with the Reiki, it's then, okay, we've now unlocked this potential that's always been there, and now let's balance that, let's cleanse, let's do what we need to do. And I just think if we could as a society pay so much more attention to those elements, I think there'd be a lot more talk of healing in the world.
Absolutely.
I had the luck and grace to also be in relationship with Jana and actually witness her whole healing process, knowing that she had healed from multiple sclerosis, knowing that she hadn't had symptoms for 13 years, knowing that she wasn't taking drugs. So for me, it was like,
because I was sick when I met him, and you actually had to finish cooking our first dinner because I was so fatigued and sick. And
she thought that I was a keeper after
I was
that.
like, wow, I must be a keeper.
That's it, definitely. And vice versa, though, clearly.
Yeah, that's
absolutely. So
Incredible.
For me, it was I mean, in the other, I was dealt with an acute like leukemia designed to take you out very quickly. So it wasn't a question of being able to try out drugs for like 8 years or something. This was like now, like we had to do something. So, but I also realized that the idea of community was so inspiring for me to have people coming in. It was exhausting, but it was a good kind of exhaustion. When you're an athlete and you run 10 miles, you're exhausted. You're like, I did it, and it felt so great. Like, wow. And I also had an attitude of like, whoever came in, I wanted to give back as much as I could to what they were giving me. So it was sort of going back and forth.
Yeah.
It was wonderful.
And that keeps the energy flowing, doesn't it?
Exactly.
So that's so powerful.
Yes.
Connect with everyone's energy. And that's the thing. We are energetic beings. Everything is surrounds about energy. So we've got these people around us who are lifting us up. We're feeding off of that energy, and that energy is healing as well. And that's just what's actually amazing about it. So as well as working on like going within, it's important to have that community, as Charlotte said, around you, because like you say, if you notice a lot of the people who do tend to heal holistically from a lot of the issues they face, it's very rarely they do it on their own. They have got that support system around them that they feed off of as well, and that energy just expands. And it's just amazing to see that.
Something fascinating about from both of your stories is how life, in its funny old way, has prepared you for these moments. Like for you, Dan, you got to see the healing journey right there in front of you, so that you could adopt it quickly, right? Because you didn't know. And for you, Jana, there as well is like the seeing people with MS ahead of time. Like it's just like the universe just fascinates me. I mean, I won't go off on one there.
No,
that's everybody's
that's
time.
a completely
I think it's amazing too. Like, how did of course there was more bookstores back then, but I mean, how did a book like a triathlete vegan you should pop out at me?
Exactly.
Like that was, that wouldn't happen. I mean, especially for a farm girl who's like, no way, my diet.
Yeah, you were ready for it, and it showed up. And that's how the universe works.
And it also kind of blows up the whole notion of like, we should be all living normal lives without diseases. Maybe disease is a part of life. Maybe we don't have to fight it. Maybe we can be with it and just learn from it. Like, part of me feels as if one of the reasons why I got it, I was diagnosed with leukemia, was to become a writer and a speaker.
Yeah,
Sometimes
absolutely.
things happen for a reason.
And
This,
yes.
sorry, I was just going to ask you a question, and this might not be such a straight answer, but is there any way that you would describe your experiences as like almost the best thing that's happened to you in your lives?
Oh,
Yes,
yeah. I mean,
absolutely.
definitely, because it was a
Totally.
complete wake-up call for me.
Yeah.
And living my life fully. I mean, 100%. I mean, I traveled all over the world doing triathlons and bike rides. I mean, absolutely insanity. I mean, riding my bike in the Swiss Alps, like from Iowa, flatland. I mean, it's just like Holland, you know, it's
Incredible.
So, I mean, it really opened up my life, and it opened up, and then eventually opened up my mind to seeing, like, you know, well, how my thoughts were affecting my body. And then now I'm looking at, you know, how has it affected my life? You know, I still have negative thoughts. And then, you know, forgiveness. And I mean, of course, the courses I did were profound too. They had me see that I had not had to, but, you know, take responsibility for my life, and then forgive other people in my life for harms they might have done. And I had a pretty traumatic childhood, and maybe that attributed to MS, I'm not sure, but it, you know, just had me see things from other people's shoes, essentially step in their shoes and see how they were. Like, why was my dad mentally abusive? Because he was mentally abused himself, you know, that kind of thing. And just so, and allowing to forgive, and that's freeing, and that heals the body as well. So yeah, it was 100% blessing, because it opened up my life in all kinds of ways I never would have ever expected it to.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Beautiful.
Awesome. I want to touch on, obviously, well, what you answered the question that Charlotte said about it was the best thing that happened to you. There's probably people who are listening to this who may be going through their own stuff right now, who are struggling to see that what they're going through is a blessing and not a curse. So for both of you, what one thing or one piece of advice would you give them right now that they could start doing to help them to kind of find, or just to become aware of kind of what they're going through and see it more as a blessing and kind of like a starting point to their healing journey?
One thing I will say that just came to my mind was that you always have the freedom of your mind and your thoughts, and no one will ever have controls over that. And so, despite feeling as if your condition is horrible, or that you've got some condition that, or symptoms that you're dealing with, having that sort of domain, that world, and recognizing that you are the author of your life in a way that you wouldn't necessarily think you do, but you always have the ability to have your emotions and your thoughts be in a creative space, and just having that knowledge can make a huge difference, I think. And I'm not saying to diminish whatever situation anybody is in, but that is always there. And if one can sort of see that, that's a possible way of starting.
I would say gratitude. If there's a way you can be grateful for your body or your mind or both, and just like, what is, you know, if you have a condition and it's challenging, what is your body trying to say to you? Do you need to have a conversation with somebody? Do you need to talk to somebody to let some kind of anger go from your past, or, you know, just things like that. And then the other thing would be start building up your belief in other people's healing stories. So it's not just us, but I mean, I for my first book that I ever read that gave me just hope and inspiration was It's Not About the Bike by Lance Armstrong. And it was just because he beat some kind of cancer that he wasn't supposed to beat. And that was like, oh, well, if he can do that, then maybe I could heal from MS. That was like my just first inspiration of hope. So just finding more belief stories that you can
Yeah.
resonate with, that might inspire you.
Yeah, fantastic. That's a great
Yeah.
resource for anyone listening as well. Another great resource has just sprung to mind as well for anyone listening who wants to hear more stories like this is Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza. So it is full of a bunch of examples as well in there. So if you're listening to this, anybody, go and just absorb this, immerse yourself in it, and yeah, like you said, Janet, like work on that belief. Be grateful, know that you have that space and that capacity. Your mind is your own domain, and love that so much. So while we have you here, please tell us about the books that you have both been busy writing away.
Well, Enchanted Wellness, how to go from hating disease to loving it, because I really did hate MS when I had it for so long. So, I mean, just it's about my healing journey, and it's not just from MS, but it's from my, traumas in my past, from abuses and things like that. And so it's part memoir, and then obviously, and then part of it, how to or resource, essentially, the things that I used in recovering or healing from MS. And so, yeah, it's launching on February 1st. And you can find it at Jana. I'll say Jana Scholten, because you can't pronounce Scholten or spell Jana Scholten.
we'll put the links in.
Okay.
But, yeah. What a wonderful title, Enchanted Wellness.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, we might have to steal that one.
I can't wait to read that. Wellness theory now.
I love wellness theory. That's awesome.
No, I think Enchanted Wellness, incredible.
And don't forget, Bruce Lipton has endorsed it.
I'm quite excited about that.
We're big fans of Bruce Lipton.
Again, if anybody's listening who doesn't know who he is, go and check out his work. He's one of the leaders in this field. He's I think he inspires many people. Yeah, exactly. I think he's got a whole bunch of titles, isn't he?
Yes.
So yeah, I think again, another powerful resource to go and check out for anyone that's listening as well as your book. Yeah. And Dan, what about you?
So the title of my book is Peacock's Poison and Leukemia: A Life of Vibrant Health. And it's about my story of being diagnosed and my whole journey, and referencing some things from the past that really helped, that really supported me in the process, and really, rediscovered my passion and love for stories and storytelling. And that ultimately, at our source, I believe that we are all, we are stories, and we can be inspired stories. And we just have to find what I call the inner healing core that's in all of us at all times. And we just have to find our own individual path to realizing that. And mine happened to be going with the peacock, and somebody else, it could be an ant. Who knows? But, ultimately, that inner healing core, it really is there all the time. Yeah. And, the moment you cut your finger, your body is healing it. It's happening almost instantaneously. Like there's no stopping the body. Yeah. And so I think there's a resiliency, there's a beauty, there's a strength there that is always there. And I believe stories and storytelling are powerful access to discovering that.
Yeah. Beautiful. I was expecting you to say that the title of your book is like "Be Like Peacock" or something like that. Be like a peacock. But yours is much better.
Yeah, definitely.
Honestly, thank you so much for sharing that. And anybody listening, we'll put the links obviously to these books, obviously, and where they can find you as well. Obviously in the show notes.
Definitely, absolutely. It's been a pleasure speaking to you both, and we could talk to you for hours. It's just so interesting.
I agree.
Before we let you go, I'm curious though, is there anything else you'd like to add to the conversation that we haven't asked you, that maybe you think people need to hear?
Well, I think that having a cat or a dog is really key. I think pets are wonderful healing creatures to be around.
Yeah, absolutely. If anybody's just listening to this on the podcast, not watching it, we just got a nice little
introduction to the cat.
This is George.
George. Nice cat name.
Curious George.
Curious George. But he's also King George.
Yeah.
There you go. I love that. You can tell he's running the household there. Yeah. Beautiful.
So thank you so much, guys, for your time today, for your stories, for sharing everything with us. I guarantee anyone listening to this, there's no way they can't be impacted by what we discussed today. So thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. We're so grateful to be able to listen to your story, to be able to then share it and get the words out there, because we need more role models. So it's incredible what you've applied to yourselves and then being able to live, but now the fact that you're sharing it, that's another level. And I think that's the world needs more people like this, speaking up about their own experiences to help inspire people. So thank you so much for everything that you do and how you show up in the world.
Thank you for your great podcast. That's awesome. Thank you.
We're just so grateful that you gave us the time and the opportunity to be here today.
Of course. Anytime. I have a feeling there could be a second episode.
I think so.
Awesome. I love that.
Listen, are you guys on social media for our listeners to come and follow you?
I have a Facebook group, but it's called Enchanted Wellness. How to go from hating disease to loving it. And I'm on Instagram, and even now I'm just starting on TikTok. So
And I'm on Facebook too. You can just the title is Peacock's Poison and Leukemia, and you'll find me there. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Again, we'll add those links to the show notes so people can come and find you and connect with you.
Oh, okay.
Wonderful.
Great. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much again once more, and we definitely look forward to chatting to you again in the future. I can guarantee there'll be another conversation at some point.
Oh, in our books, Jana's is coming out February 1st. Mine's coming out February 8th. So
perfect. Awesome.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.